All right.
Okay, well, welcome everyone to the Clean Network call today. Today is informal discussion, so I'm going to first ask if there are any announcements that people would like to share.
I can go.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, Carrie has her hand raised. I'll just go really quickly. I'll say it again. The Accelerating Climate Capacity Engagement and Leadership Summit convened by Clean is officially only like 2.5 weeks away. So register if you haven't already. I know a lot of you have. I'll put the link in the chat. Also, I'm still trying to gear up for this fall. Oh, thanks, Frank. There's a link. For Clean Call. So if you have any ideas about presenters, definitely let me know. Some of you have reached out about that, but if you have any ideas, let me know. Thanks.
Okay, how many people are registered so far for the Excels?
74.
24, good.
74.
Okay, 74, oh, that's even better.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, Carrie?
Thanks. I am just reminding everyone that we're hiring for an open position at National Center for Science Education. I'm putting the link to the open position in the chat. We're looking for someone who has some outreach and networking experience because we're hoping to build the network of districts and schools that are using our curriculum to dispel misconceptions. So if you have anyone in mind, please share this with them. The application closes, or we're gonna not accept resumes, I should say, after September 15th. So we're getting down to the wire, but more applicants are always great applicants. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Carrie. Jim?
Yes, thank you, Tamara. And sorry, I don't have my camera up yet. Let's see, when is, so just mentioning, maybe we can mention this later. So I did check with the AAAS, by the way, about the Family Science Days. So can kind of maybe check in a little bit later, Tamara, and with you on the line. Mostly want to mention that Clean will be featured at the largest Northern California community event that happens every year in the entire northern half of the state. That's a traditional place that we get to bring climate education and climate action to probably about 100,000 people this year after COVID. But it just means that climate is part of, like, there's hundreds of subjects that are covered in the East Bay, right? Hundreds of subjects at this event. And we're making sure that climate education and climate action is one of those subjects. Schools come by, teachers come by, principals come by, city councils come by. We meet a whole lot of people, and it's always a question of how can this connect with the schools and do things. So Clean is there. The Clean Network is there doing that.
Jim,
So
thanks for making sure that's there. Is this event science in general or climate?
Perfect question. Most of the events Mobile Climate Science Labs takes place in are STEM events, are science events. That's their focus. This is a general community event. It's basically a street festival, but one where just lots of subjects. So we're pretty much the only subject that's like science education, not alone climate science. So it's kind of different in that way, but we're very well welcomed at the event.
And is the audience just general, or is it really specific to educators and students?
That's right. No, you're right. You're right on it by the first part. It is general. It's the community at large. So, you know, in some ways, we're looking for the 2 to 3% who are the teachers and the principals and things that are, you know, maybe even less. But, you know, it's mostly families will come up. And people, but it's one thing is you have 100,000 people and then they self-select what they're interested in during the day. They might stop at 10 or 20 booths a day. And those who select us, they want science education. So it's a whole different equation, right? There's a lot of people, most of them pass by us, but those who stop, we're reaching a lot. But a lot of people see it is the idea. They know that climate education is on the community mind.
Okay,
Thanks.
great. Thank you. Okay, Carolyn.
Hey, I know I've brought this up on the last few calls, but, you know, gonna keep tooting that horn. We're having a climate education summit in South Florida in about a month now. So there's the link. It is in person. It's in North Miami, so kind of between Miami and Broward. Yeah, so if you know folks who are in that area, definitely, spread the word for us. And I'm always talking about clean resources with the teachers. So that representation will be there too. And I'm really sorry. There's additional additional members at the meeting today.
Okay, thank you. Any other announcements?
Tamara,
Yeah,
I would just add, some of us are going to the ASTC conference next weekend. I see Frank is on. We have a group of 4 of us that are going to be leading a session at the beginning of the conference. And Jen Kretzer has sent out an email to the Clean group asking any members who are affiliated with Clean if they want to be involved with the exhibit on Tuesday, that there will be a Clean group that are invited to exhibit their signs and anything that helps promote what they have been doing with the Clean Network.
okay, great. Thanks for sharing that. Any other announcements? Okay, well, if none, if you think of something along the way, you can put it in the chat. We are scheduled for informal discussion today. And so are there topics that people would be interested in exploring more for our conversation today? Maybe Frank, you want to just give an overview of what Excels is shaping up to be?
Well, I mean, the main idea, and let's just put it that way, of this summit is that we are trying to do something new. The Clean Network, as many of you know and have participated in, has been around since 2008. Tamara and I were in the first setting up of this idea. But one thing we've never really done as well as we could have, and actually, Tamara, if I remember right, you were part of this, that in the Tri-PI meeting back in 2010, which was the PIs who were funded on climate change education from NOAA, NASA, and NSF, started saying, well, here's what I'm doing in my project that has already been funded, but I haven't fulfilled. And we started sharing what we're about to do. And what started emerging out of that was there were patterns. And I've actually unearthed some of those old documents. And so you can, but what's really important here is, because this was the 120 people who were funded to do work on climate change education. And they started showing what they're about to do, as opposed to what they've already done, which often is what happens in the Clean Network. Yeah, I've almost finished something, it's about to come out. But what it doesn't do is open up the space for collaboration as widely as it could. And where that possibility is largest is at the earlier phases of a project, of an initiative, of a workshop, of an event. And so really what the ESSEL Summit idea is trying to do is say, those who are members of the network, let's come together once a year at minimum and just say, here's what I'm about to do. You kind of, at some point in time in a year, know what you're about to do for the year. Name that in a way that socializes it with everyone else who's come, and then explore, well, if Carolyn, for example, Cleo, you do workshops. There are a bunch of other organizations who do workshops, climate teacher workshops. That's a natural area where we could actually start collaborating in the development of those in a way that would share what are the best resources. Carolyn, I am pretty sure you're going to be developing a list of resources to share with teachers. I know Bart Merrick does it for the Chesapeake Bay, and the list goes on. But the idea is to, and then 6 months later, after September, is to come together again and say, could we, how much progress are we making on those areas that naturally emerge for collaboration in September? And between then, what do we need as a network to do to support people who want to collaborate in areas where there's shared interest? It could be on a variety of topics, but anyway, that's really what the summit is attempting to do. Yeah, I think it's one of those things that'll build energy across time, but we've never really done this in the network. We've done this in other venues, but we've never done it in the actual clean network. And it also supports one of our goals in the network is to grow the network, the diversity of network, the number of people who are active in the space, and become a more collaborative network as opposed to a sharing network. So that's the short version. Gina, did I botch it or did I get close?
No, you're spot on. I think
All right.
there'll be,
So could you have a sense of those 74 people that have registered, who are already part of the Clean Network and who are new?
That's a Gina question.
I mean, I think we've got a mix of both, honestly. I've seen names that I definitely recognize and names that I don't recognize, and it's been advertised on listservs beyond Clean. Like I know it's been advertised. Katie's been putting it on the Rising Voices listserv, which is more justice, Indigenous focused. I think our social media has probably been reaching some different folks, but then a lot of Clean classics, I would call them.
One of the groups, it would be interesting to me. So I have a friend who I actually invited to come, and she signed up for it. But she is a journalist, and she is part of a I don't know, she receives the emails for a podcast for the New York Times program, podcast for journalists. And I sent the link to them, to the people, the editors of that at the New York Times. So I don't know if we'll get anybody from there. They didn't
Nice.
respond to my email, but I sent it to them.
Okay, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, it's good. I know you have also been kind of sharing with some networks outside of Clean, which has been really helpful. I think it'll be good to have that mix, some new voices. And
I know that the Subject to Climate also posted it. They got, I mean, when I talked to them, they said that they saw your newsletter, and I saw it in their post, the advertisement for it. So that's, that we are reaching out.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm definitely hoping we're at 74. I would love to get to 100. So hopefully in the next, week or two here, we'll get those last few stragglers. Yep.
What people usually tell me is that the people sign up for these things usually at the last minute.
Yeah, I definitely anticipate that happening. And, I hope that, there's the link again, Ginger. I hope that the small fee to help offset the cost of speakers, I hope that having some skin in the game will ensure that more people actually come. I also do anticipate maybe some people sign up and don't show up, but hopefully not, hopefully with that fee, there'll be some more than normal. So.
But one thing that, I mean, that I can see that would be beneficial, at least for some of my work, is, as all of you know, I do these En-ROADS climate solutions workshops. And I've tried to reach out to lots of different groups to do them, but we've communicated. I'm going to be actually doing one for the organization that Jane is part of, the Wade Institute for Science Education. They run a climate, our communities course for teachers, and I'm going to be doing a workshop for them during that course. So those are areas where what I do is contributing to a course, and that's the kind of thing that I'm hoping that we'll be able to find, those kinds of ways of synergizing all of our work. Jane, if you're talking, you're muted.
There, how's that? I
Yep,
think
I
I
can hear you
managed to unmute. Yeah, so I received from ASTC the emails and who has signed up to participate in our session already. And we are doing one of the deep sessions that's for 4 hours on the pre-conference day. And we have 35 people signed up. They're from 17 different states, 4 different countries. And I don't see any problem with going ahead and sending them the Excel's email.
That would be
I
great.
think it might be really exciting to see who might show up out of that batch. I know there's a couple of people from a children's museum in Madison, Wisconsin, but there's also big museums like the one Natural History Museum in New York City and the one in DC. And one in South Carolina. I love there's one from Casper, Wyoming. You know, we could get some really interesting folk. So I think we should, I'll go ahead and kick that out. And I think we can get some more people from that as well. When's the final day, Gina, for signing up?
I think we're just gonna close it the day before, so right up.
Oh,
until
all
the-
right. Well,
Yeah.
we will get that out. And Frank, let's try to remember that we bring that up as we come to a close at next Sunday.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Having more representation from the Aztec community, the AZA community,
Yes.
the Aquaria community, inside of this, because we need all forms of education and community engagement and workforce development in this ecosystem. So 100% Jane.
All right, let's do it. Aren't you excited, Frank?
Nah, I'm kind of flat today. I'm actually working on my closing slides right now for the event on Saturday. Because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to say, as we leave our workshop and you go into Pittsburgh for the next couple of days, where are the climate solutions? Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania is one of the leading cities in the nation for climate solutions. And I will tell you, it's going to be hard to see the change. And I'm building those slides right now, but if anybody on this call has any insights as to where big, bold, transformational work that's going on in Pittsburgh, that people could see and experience, because a lot of what we're finding is their plans. And so, but I will tell you, I'll give you an insight. I am blown away by Pittsburgh's Bike Plus plan. I mean, it is the most thorough climate plan I've ever seen in my life. It's brilliant. Whoever built the Bike Plus plan in Pittsburgh is really, really impressive.
What aspects of it are impressive, Frank?
The detail and the thoroughness and the community process to actually get transformation in a city like Pittsburgh to be a Bike Plus, and Bike Plus means like, any form of non-car based transportation. But it is thorough. And like all the kind of the details about transforming a city to make a bike work. Because right now, taking a bike into a city is a dangerous, possibly deadly experience. And to go from that and to actual bold transformation at a city scale for people to actually use people powered or people plus powered, meaning electric bikes work inside a city. I've never seen anything this robust. So I'm very impressed by that one.
I'd like to bring up something else. It's something else that I've been involved with. Many of you know, well, actually, I'll let Jim go. Jim, you have your hand up. You have something you wanted to say?
Sure. Let's see. I have a more general thing, but I'm sure, Frank, you're up with whatever the Carnegie Institute Science Center is up to these days. Yeah, I mean, they would be the natural on that, of course. And of course, something Frank knows, but they were part of CUSP, the Climate, Urban, and Systems Partnership, which we worked with when it was around. I don't think that's funded anymore, but life there on that. But I get it, Frank. You need good examples in Pittsburgh, not other things other science centers are doing that Pittsburgh could do, right? That's what's going on. I think I just want to give a general applause to the whole Excel's approach and what Frank was saying about it. How about from this perspective? Collaboration is something that needs to be worked for. It needs to be encouraged. It needs to be, there needs to be leaders of it that do that. The collaboration is one way humans interact, but they often tend to compete, and that's true in climate education too. We need to. I mean, the way I would look at it is we want to have examples of where collaboration makes each partner part of it more successful. So you want to collaborate. You're going to be left behind if you're all by it yourself or you push other people aside. A couple observations of why it's hard. ClimateChangeEducation.org did a portal part a website, before Clean, early on, very rudimentary predecessor, like in 2001 through 2013. And so we would put up for free a lot of resources that we had vetted and seen that. But the reaction was always interesting how what people would contact us about or talk about is, can you put my resource up? We want our resource featured on your site. Great, that's wonderful. But there wasn't much of a sense that coming from our community of, well, it's great that you're building us all, right? How can we work together? There's a collaborative spirit. It's how can I get my program ahead? So it's something to be worked for. And I think another thing I've seen is sometimes nonprofits are more competitive and less cooperative than even corporations are. There's such a push for your grant and to satisfy your grant funder that you have to get yours out here. In some ways, you need to push aside others to show that you're the one who's deserving money. And there needs to be an alternative to that. There needs to be, we can work together. We shouldn't all be doing the same thing. There's so much of repeating the same thing. So I mean, and now Frank and Noah and Clean have always not been like that, right? But we need to champion collaboration. And so just thank you, Frank, and thank you, Gina, and thank you, Katie, and everybody who's been part of Excel. So I think it's much needed. Thanks.
I would build on that and add strongly that collaboration is one of the most important human skills to get us through this phase that we're living in right now. We don't collaborate, I don't think the species is going to make it. So I think I feel very strongly about what you just said. And I would echo the joy of it. And I know Deb Morrison will be emphasizing this in our session next week. She'll be talking about choosing strong people to collaborate with. And it's that really wonderful thing of choosing people who don't do what you do. So you have something really cool to offer. They have something really cool to offer. But oh my God, if you both do it together, whammo, you get magic. And that's the joy of collaboration, is when you both win. And I really love those grants that support collaborative efforts, because I think they're going for the win-win. So
Yeah,
thanks
that's
for
what I
what you said.
I just said that in the chat, that the funders are more likely to fund partnerships than they are single projects. So I think that reminding people of that, we had a salmon recovery grant process in Washington, and I believe there were 5 different proposals that came in from our little community for one surface water body. And 2 of them were separate proposals by one agency, and then 3 other proposals. And it was just crazy that these people in a community of, 250,000 couldn't work together to get one proposal on this one surface water body. It was stupid. And none of them got funded.
How do they know about each other? Jane, you're muted again. So
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, some small NGOs might not know about other small NGOs, but as a funder, that would concern me. You know, how well
That's true.
connected are you in the community? If you're not well connected and you're operating in a vacuum, how effective are you
Right.
going to be with your outreach?
So that brings me to what I started to talk about before. And so many of you know that I'm involved with AAAS. I'm this Secretary of the Education of AAAS. AAAS has undergone a major revision of its governance structure. And so the steering committee for education is going to change. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because I am the lone geoscientist on the committee. Most of the members of the steering group are all in the biological sciences. AAAS is an organization that really does represent all of the sciences, and not just the sciences, but society at large. There are sections that have to do with policy and general science, or the general public. And it's kind of hard to push an agenda within the education section when I'm the lone voice for the geosciences of any kind, climate change, or even the physical sciences. So most of the people are biologists. So as it turns out, in this transition of their governance structure, the secretary was assigned. It will be a separate voted on member of the steering group in the future. But in this transition, the secretary was assigned to lead the effort to identify the members of the new section. That's me. And so I reached out to Ann Egger. She is the executive director for the National Association of Geoscience Teachers, to ask her for names of potential people who might fill in these roles as part of the steering group for education. And I've contacted a few of them, but one of the challenges that I've had is that, well, to be on the steering group, you have to be a member of AAAS. Now, in this particular case, you can become a member of AAAS today, and you can become part of this group. That's not a problem. But it's really clear that there are not a lot of geoscientists, climate science educators as members of AAAS. This has been really keenly felt in my, one of the jobs of the steering group is to identify who we nominate as fellows. I have been able to nominate a geoscience educator over the past few years, but it's hard because a lot of them are not members of AAAS. And the rule there is to be nominated, you have to be a member of AAAS for 4 consecutive years at the time of nomination. So this is just a pitch to that. This is a community where we should be reaching out into to collaborate and to actually make climate change part of what they see as part of their efforts. The section right now is engaged in 2 activities. One is to have another, it's been, I think, over 10 years since Science Magazine had an education issue. And one group within the section is pushing to make that happen again. The other one, which I'm more involved in, is we're going to have a section webinar series with the overarching theme of equity and justice. And then each of the members of the organizing group is going to organize the panels in which people will present what they're doing, but the facilitator will ask questions around how their efforts are addressing equity and justice. And so I'm planning to have 2 people on my panel, one in the health sciences and one in climate science education, both education. And so I will, once this actually gets set up, I will send a link to everybody about what the webinar series is. There'll be 4 webinars during the course of the academic year. Anyway, but so if anybody is interested or knows of people who might serve in the various, or I can describe it more. I'm not going to go into it here, but there's 9 members of the steering group, half of whom, I mean, this time around, all 9 are going to be appointed for a year in this transition. Eventually they'll be elected. So if anybody's interested in reaching out into these other areas where you can make an impact in climate education by engaging those that are involved in various other kinds of science and education, let me know. I don't know if anybody has any questions about this, but it's something that I've been trying to push forward for quite a while now.
Tamara, just a quick question. I mean, what, given the power and heft of AAAS, what do you see the top objectives or outcomes that you think could come from this effort?
This education, so education section is one of 24 sections. And I think that the more we, AAAS itself, the employees that are paid, there's a lot of efforts around advocacy, around pushing forward agendas, both politically and socially. But to have climate change on their radar screen, it's usually there in the organization, you know, on the paid side, but the membership, there's over like 125,000 members. And to be able, and the education itself has about 7,500 members. And so it's an effort, and this is education in all areas of science. I mean, it's not just climate change, but it allows you a broader reach. It allows us a broader reach. And that's what I'm looking for. So potentially, actually, it just occurred to me, maybe I can put out on their education forum the Excel's registration link and see if that engages anybody. I don't know if we'll be able to identify that, but it will go out to 7,500 people. So, so frankly, there's not a specific thing. It's more of a networking like you're trying to do with Excels. You can't really say at this point what the outcomes are going to be, but engaging these different kinds of groups is really how we address societal problems.
Thank you. That's super helpful. Just get your insight into how you think that's going to operate.
What happens in my smaller microcosm of the education committee is even if I have multiple candidates to be fellows, usually what happens is that the biology people recommend somebody and 2 or 3 other members of the committee know that person. And so they take precedence because I have a smaller voice. They usually are okay. I mean, usually it's everybody gets to nominate at least one person, but in the past we have about 10 nominees each year. It varies a little bit. But I've not been able to do more than one a year because I am one geoscientist. The people on the rest of the committee don't know the people that I'm recommending. So that's one area where I've just noticed that I've had the frustration.
Right.
Okay, Jim?
Yes, if I could just bring in some more AAAS developments or news, but I want to make sure it has the direction of encouraging AAAS and supporting AAAS. If to the extent it's reorganizing and figuring things out, then that means there's still room for change and to make things work. So I don't want to be a downer with this, but just reporting, you know, as science educators, we first want the truth, we want the facts, and then we have to work with those. I've been checking in with AAAS around the Center for Community Engagement over where a whole lot of programs have taken place. Certainly the Family Science Days, but video programs encouraging teachers, especially in the DC metro area, to, retired scientists or people to be volunteer teachers in the metro area. The many different programs that are strong. Everything I get is that they've essentially closed down the Center for Community Engagement. So it would be kind of to bring that up, to like be aware that wait a second, that's a huge hole in what AAAS has done. And AAAS has been an incredible leader for decades in this area. What happens now? Why do I say that? So that's based on it is I of course checked in with Family Science Days and just found that all the people that I've known over a decade, they're all gone. And as I see they're at UC Berkeley, they're at Department of Energy and Environment. So I mean, they didn't vanish from the earth. They're somewhere else, right? We saw that and wrote in and got to it. And the last thing I got was from Jill Perla, who's wonderful, very sweet person, known for long time. And her response was kind of a positive one. Well, gee, we'd love it if you exhibited at the general exhibit this year. And that's not really what we do. I mean, that's for the scientists. It's not the public. It's not getting into diversity and things. But that was a kind of made it just
So
clear.
what were you trying to get into? You were trying to get into the Family Science Days, or?
I wanted to just be really clear. It was not happening this year, but also without, with being positive and not being complainy or anything, just kind of checking it. Is there anything left of the Center for Community Engagement? Because one of the
Is that
former
what so I'm just not understanding. The Center
Sure.
for Community Engagement, was that what put on the Family Science Days?
Yes.
Or
Yeah, that was under their umbrella. One
I
of the
see.
things.
Yeah.
And just, again, kind of just checking in with the various people who are still at AAAS. Is it been changed? Is it under a different thing? Is someone taking things over? But both what I got from the staff who used to be in the CCE, nope, we're out. And then from people who are existing at AAAS, it was like, well, just come work at AAAS conference, which is wonderful. Love to be there, but it's different than community engagement. And certainly different.
Yeah,
than
no,
education.
it absolutely is. And this is one of the issues with AAAS, is that it's an organization where there's a paid staff, and it's a substantial paid staff, unlike Clean. And they do one thing, and then there is the member, and we've been working really hard to get the education section expertise tapped into for the things that the paid staff, the kind of programs the paid staff does. It's a difficult process because they seem to have their charge and they do what they do. It's a challenge. It definitely is a challenge. And I hear you, Jim. It's something that's an ongoing issue, but the more we can have pressure from one of the things that these two activities that I mentioned of the education section, that's relatively new. Prior to the past year, when we decided to do these efforts, all we did was nominate fellows and support the submission of symposium to the general meeting. So by having pressure from the membership to move in certain directions, by having that voice in the section, can help apply that pressure. And that's what we're kind of doing both with. It was a little bit easier for the webinar series that they gave us a dedicated Zoom link. But for the education issue of science, that's a real challenge. And the group that's working on that is really pushing hard, but it's difficult. Are there any other topics that people would like to discuss?
I've got one that's popping. So between the infrastructure bill, the CHIPS bill, and the IRA bill, the amount of money that's going into the space that we're interested in is massive. And I've just, as part of a project I do, something called the inventory. I'll put a link to the latest last year's report, but we're doing another one right now, writing the report now with these bills in it. The number of programs that are federally funded or initiated related to climate education, training, public awareness, public access to information, and workforce development is north of 500 across 19 departments and agencies, independent agencies. And when you add in the work we did on the CHIPS infrastructure and IRA that are all coming in the next couple of years, it's massive. But I think, Jim, it gets to your point about collaboration, because each one of these programs is kind of set to do its own thing. And so if there's any, there's a lot of missed opportunities, and we're trying to do some things right now to fix that. But still, there's a massive set of individual programs that are coming and agencies that are just got like billions and billions of dollars to move that relate to this. And how that looks on your side as opposed to our side, would be any insights about that, anything that's being done well? Because as we know, Congress didn't fund climate change education like they did back in the day. So it's not funded. It's all these other things. And so if there's anything that where those things become interesting, intersectional between block money that goes to states that then choose it to fund it in their state, or that there are priorities that are emerging that agencies are doing that you see, that I see, or anybody, just anything that we can kind of like get a sense of all the hands on the animal that's in front of us and go, oh, it's an elephant, would be helpful. Because that's what it is. I don't know if it's a brontosaurus, a tyrannosaurus, a amoeba. Hopefully it's not an amoeba, but it's something large. And I'm not sure it's blue whale, you know. Wait, we're wet. But it's a magnitude I've not seen, but it's definitely not prioritized the way the work we had back in the past was. So any insights, I'm always interested to see what you're seeing on your side, as opposed to what I see on my side. And once we get that report done, I will share it with everyone so you guys can see what I'm talking about.
Thank you, Frank.
Sure.
Jim, did you have a comment with respect to this?
Yes, and in some ways, I will be running with what you said, Frank, and doing it, kind of putting with a kind of look the last maybe 6 clean calls is we've been bringing up. Let's have a formal discussion on the IRA of 2022, perhaps without getting in the way of that. Let's do that. But perhaps because it's so important is because it keeps coming up, and we shouldn't get behind the ball, behind on this. Maybe we should also take an approach of nibbling at it rather than feeling we have a whole formal 4-course meal. That today or some of the ones we can at least bring it up. I mean, it's big, but it is in English, and I've read through it. I think I have a pretty good handle over what it's about. And we can nibble at it and at least share with each other these are major features of it, and then decide, okay, well, maybe today why don't we feel that verify the elephant's tail, what we have here. But that's stating an opinion to see what other people think. But I think that totally runs with what you're saying, Frank, or your spirit.
Thank you. Jim, I just looked at the data. Yeah, the IRA is the largest related to what we care about of the 3. Infrastructure bill is the largest overall, but it doesn't have as much related to what we're interested in as the IRA does, as far as quantity of programs. Overall dollars, I can't do that analysis right now, but and CHIPS is the smallest. If you're not tracking all of this federal fund, these 3 bills together do some amazing things, but you have to see them as a set. But then you have to look at each one individually, and then each program element within there.
So what are the 3 again, Frank? The IRA and what?
IRA, CHIPS, and infrastructure. Those are the 3
IRA
bills.
stand for?
Inflation Reduction
Inflation
Act.
Reduction Act.
Okay.
And I think that the preferred name for the infrastructure bill is the bipartisan infrastructure law bill. So it's bill, CHIP, and IRA. So
CHIP
great
is
acronyms. CHIPS.
Okay, and what does that stand for?
It actually has to do with manufacturing microchips, but it has a fair number of climate provisions and funding programs inside of CHIPS. So, it'll be about this, like inflation reduction, but there's all this climate stuff inside it. So you gotta know you're not gonna get a climate bill called climate these right now. So you get inflation, microchips, and infrastructure. that have climate in them. So that's just the way it all worked out. And inside there, they've got massive things that we care about. But you know, IRA is the one has the largest amount of things that we're interested in. So Jim, to your point, I would recommend we talk about the three as a set. But the key and the emphasis is on infrastructure.
Gina put in the chat that we have a presentation on the IRA that was organized by Frank G. For October 18th.
Hi, Frank G. Thank you, Tamara, for finally naming him properly. Frank G.
Yeah,
I-
Jeff Hamilton, he's in high demand, so we're really lucky we got him, but it'll be happening. Sorry,
That's
Ginger.
great.
Cool. Oh, I just wanted to say, I think it's all also, I think that as climate educators and taxpayers, it's probably good for us to try and familiarize ourselves with the opportunities and be looking at our own communities and what they've applied for, because like there was a story this morning on NPR about like a building that, you know, part of the money can go towards upgrading buildings and putting in air conditioning in old buildings. And I just think it, you know, like people have got to be out there following the money and making sure that their municipalities or whatever, you know, A, are aware of it and applying for it, and then B, making sure that, like, you know, if a landlord applies for the money, that the air conditioning actually goes into the buildings, because, you know, the tenants are unlikely to know that their landlord applied for that money. And I worry about the state or federal capacity to actually do the follow-up and make sure that the grants were used appropriately.
I think that's a very good point. The making sure that the money gets used for what it was intended for, I think is going to be a huge challenge. Because I don't think it's the same kind of reporting that we have on when we get federal grants.
But Ginger, just to take that step one further, one of the things that's interesting about these dollars is, like, for example, in the IRA bill, there's a program out of the Department of Energy called State-Based Home Energy Efficiency Contractor Training Grants. So the contractor training programs need to be strengthened. But if you read the substance, it isn't just energy efficiency, it's also electrification improvements. But the one thing that we in the community has been emerging over the years is that one of our educators and one of our target audiences are these people who do energy efficiency and electrification work in homes and businesses and public buildings, as somebody who we consider to be part of the audience we focus on and the programs and partnerships that serve them. As somebody who's dealt with these people personally, they need a lot of help to understand how climate change and their actions relate to climate solutions. That is not something that they intuitively know for the most part, not even close. So that one particularly jumps out at me as an important area for collaboration, because we're good at how to educate them as public educators. But that's an emerging idea as opposed to using these dollars to actually make that happen.
Yeah, and I would say, you know, looking at, especially if it's a pass through from the states to the municipalities or counties or whatever, they are all going to manage them differently. Whether the information arrives in a usable form. I mean, you know, if half your contractors are Spanish speaking primarily, only putting out RFPs in English and only on certain websites like the chambers may not reach your intended audience. And so anything we can do to help these small, I mean, the whole point is to help small business, but a lot of times small business doesn't have the capacity to go looking for these opportunities.
Right.
Jim, you have your hand raised again?
Sure. I would definitely see that in the IRA and not in the RA of 2022, what they call the individual section, which gets into what people, the funding is mostly for homeowners or people who own buildings, to put in heat pumps, to to basically get away from natural gas. It's a lot of it to make things electrical. So it's more, you get a rebate, you get funding to help you to do that, and that's sort of the way the money travels. And then of course the contractor gets the job, right? If you have a lot of people saying, gee, I can put in solar panels, I can put in a heat pump now, and the government will help me with 50% of it, well, a lot more people do. That's a lot of the way that works. So I think, when we're looking at that's a lot where it intersects with education, and you're going to need a lot more workforce. Still, there's also, but by contrast, a lot of what the IRA does is put much more money into solar and wind and nuclear too, shifting from where being subsidized through the fossil fuel industry, right? I mean, the coal companies are very upset about this because it does not have money for, it doesn't even have money under the clean coal thing. People have heard me say this one again, but I would just emphasize there is a thing that's both just morally right in what we're doing, but also an argument of it is a pretty top-down approach where it's using the existing structure, the existing companies. It's saying they're more. It doesn't address who are the people who are going to do this job in terms of diversity. It doesn't address that. And what I want to bring up from an area I know in the electrical field, engineer and so on, is this is a very white dominated field. And that if you just throw money at it, it's going to stay that way, right? If all your attention is, well, let's just give money away, well, it's going to continue to be white male. And yes, it would be Latino male as well, but they tend to be the workers, not the owners. There is a thing of, hey, wait a minute, you talk the federal government is going to have hundreds of billions of dollars going out, and we're not going to have other people of color be involved. We're not going to have women be in STEM. That's not going to fly, right? And you need us to help to address that, to encourage people to be in STEM, to make that connection. And when you speak to the unions, at least I will admit I much more know the union sector than I do the non-union sector. You'll see apprenticeship shows up again and again and again. These are programs that must have an apprenticeship. That's union language for one, but it's also saying is you need to have people who are being trained to be their field. You're not just going hire someone off the street, have them put some solar panels, fall off the roof, and hurt themselves and they're out of the field. You need to be actually training people that this is their profession. There's a lot that in these schools, but if you talk to the apprenticeship programs, they have a very hard time getting enough of anybody, but especially diverse. It tends to continue to be, well, my uncle's an electrician, so they're going to get me in the union, and we go. I mean, it's gotten better, but there's still a lot of that. We have to do that, and in order to fill the roles they need, yeah, they want to have people of color. They want to have women, and have women feel like they're not being harassed, and this is actually a good job to be in, right? So there's a lot of stuff that the IRA funds, but it's an incomplete picture. And that's one where I'm eager that we know about this, because we need to go and help that picture be complete, not just nag about it. But if it isn't complete, it's going to be it's going to be a picture with some pretty big Swiss cheese holes in it. Thanks.
Frank?
So Jim, I think what you're doing right there is naming something that as we were designing the SL Summit, was that it wasn't just what's going on, but also when we see what each of us are doing, we might also see what isn't at the same time.
Yep.
And so we can see, by seeing what is, you can see, wait a minute, what's that? There's nothing here. And so either somebody's doing it who's not here, or that's an emerging priority space that we together need to figure out how to properly approach. So I think you're doing something that is natural in our space. And so that's exactly what day 2, if I remember right, Gina, is more about that, what's emerging and needed, not just collaborations based on what is, but also what do we not see that should be. And I think that Jim, you're definitely moving in that direction. So I would, the government's not going to do this all by any stretch of the imagination, but that does open up opportunities for strategic initiatives that do things that are needed that are not yet. So I encourage you to bring that forth again there.
Tamara had to hop off a few minutes early for an in-person meeting.
I
Any other
just
thoughts?
had
Yeah,
one
go ahead.
thought on that is you know, in Washington, we still have a pretty big gap between the STEM people and general science people, like climate science people. But I have a link to, you know, I was just thinking, okay, I need to reach out to like the Gear Up or some organization that promotes STEM stuff. And that would be, Frank, I think, you know, there are probably similar organizations in every state. It'd be interesting to see how many, you know, if any of them show up to this cells thing, or then ask the people who do show up, do they know who the career and technical ed and STEM promoters are in their state?
So Ginger, one thing that showed up at the Council of State Science Supervisors annual meeting this summer, specifically in the Climate Change Education Ad Hoc Committee, was that as we expand the career and technical dimensions that relate to, you know, HVAC, electrician, but why do we need more of these things actually comes from the earth and environmental or systems side. And so some of those course pathways are going to need more science in order to understand the career and technical component. And so one of the things I think you're naming is that the STEM science side of the departments of education and the career and technical side, there's a very big wall or a void. I don't know which one you want to use between those two, and this does not exist for the most part. And so the relationship between what a student does in these emerging areas that comes from the science side, they have the expertise, and the career and technical skill, these have to be co-designed. There are probably some states where that's emerging. Colorado comes to mind, Washington State comes to mind, but there's a lot of work still to be done on that cross-siloing in departments of education and across the states related to this. So that's another area of strategic priority. I noticed, I just saw the clock click over to 2:01 Eastern time. So, but I definitely see what you're talking about, Gina, Ginger, 100%.
Yeah.
Wow, this is why we have informal conversations.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think somebody should call Mike Rowe, whatever, the Dirty Jobs guy. Frank, you should call Mike Rowe and see if he wants to go for a beer.
All
The
right, I
Dirty,
don't know,
you
Mike.
remember that Dirty Jobs? I don't know him either, but he had
Oh,
that show,
that
Dirty
guy.
Jobs. Yeah, because he is all about career and technical education.
Well, let's do it, Ginger.
He's probably a climate denier, but maybe not.
I think he
Well,
is actually.
They don't always stay that way, by the way.
Right.
They may be there and then they change.
Right, yeah. But if he, because he's just so frustrated with the whole college track promotion, and all the trades are struggling to find kids to come in and be participating. So
Absolutely.
anyway, have a great day, everyone.
Well, and on a positive note, PBS has had a couple of specials on the importance of the technical track, and kids who may be training at colleges and decide, no, she says, I want to be an electrician and it's great. I have a real job. So I think it's only seeds of that are emerging.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and the misogyny problem is it's huge, and I don't know how we fix it. Because if all the union leadership is male, they can recruit till they're blue in the face. But when the kids go out in the field, if they're the only girl on the crew, I don't know how they're going to change it. It's going to have to involve hard talk and firing people who can't change their behavior.
I
And
know someone who, sorry.
go ahead. No, go
I
ahead.
know
I'd like your,
personally someone who basically basically left the field because of homophobia as well.
oh, yeah, and that too. Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So, but that's maybe the next, maybe we should invite the GLAD people to our next meeting. Anyway, talk to you guys later. Have a great week.
Thanks
Right.
for being here, everybody. It was a
Thanks for sharing
pleasure.
that, Caroline.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye.